when those opportunities are rare in a game to be able to exploit the space, why not use them? When you've got pacey players, why not use them? If he's saying that he's really pleased with that performance, I'd be very surprised, because he seems like someone who demands a lot from his players.
It's no coincidence that Copenhagen played a back five, Southampton played a back five. Against a team that potentially wants to sit in, we struggle. It will be a different proposition against Arsenal, because they will give us a bit more space. They won't be playing five at the back. Yeah, Casado's going to win Player of the Year, but Cucurella is firmly in second.
You get 100% of him every game, no matter whether we're playing well or poorly, no matter whether he's playing poorly, like Jason said, has popped up with some big goals.
Rarely, in fact, I can't even think of another scenario where you've had a goalkeeper playing one week and a goalkeeper playing the next, and it's swapping around. I think it probably tells you a little bit about where Maresca's mind is. He's not convinced by either.
I thought Petrovic was the best goalkeeper last year.
So did I.
And then all of a sudden he was the one who had to go to Strasbourg. We shouldn't be celebrating that competition with the level of team that's in it. But no, come on.
Happy birthday, I should say, to Chelsea Football Club, 120 years old today.
That night, I was doing it in the studio, and I blubbed. I openly blubbed.
Welcome to another episode of Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Buzaglo, and today I'm joined by former Chelsea players. We've got Jason Cundy and we have Jody Morris with us as well in the studio. I mean,
All right, Liv.
All right, how are you?
All right.
Good. I mean, I feel like we should be talking positively about this, because we're coming off the back of a 1-0 win against Leicester. But immediate reactions, Jace.
Yeah.
A 1-0 win against Leicester, when I say it, given where they are in the table,
Yeah.
I just feel like, I know it's 3 points and we should be happy about that, but the performance just wasn't great.
At this stage of the season, obviously you want a performance. That's every fan that goes to watch their team wants to win the performance,
Yeah.
right? It does feel now as though the performance, they're not good enough, but the result now becomes more important, because City dropped points the other day. Mm-hmm. The teams behind us, Bournemouth dropped points. It was a massive 3 points yesterday. Huge 3 points. Now, you want to talk about the performance, it's a tough watch. It's not been an easy watch. Copenhagen had a 5 at the back, Leicester played a 5 at the back, and we don't move the ball quick enough. There are moments in transition where they are out of shape, and we don't move the ball. It's a little bit laboured, and then 3 passes later, they've set their shape again. I think we can really move that ball through the thirds. We seem to labour a little bit. There's a bit of a malaise about our build-up at time, and when we pass the ball sideways, it gives them a chance to get back in their shape. But we're 4th. Every time I look at the table, I kept expecting to see it's like 8th or 9th, but that's not the case. So, look, Champions League football is, it's available. It's in our hands.
I mean, it is available and it is in our hands, but based off of that performance, I mean, should we really be looking into these wins against Southampton and Leicester too much? Because they are arguably 2 of the worst teams we have ever seen in the Premier League. Southampton was slightly more convincing, but why wasn't Leicester the same as Southampton?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Jace's point on the slightly laboured build-up and opportunities that I think, I agree with Jace, we absolutely turned down moments to hurt teams when they're disrupted or they're dishevelled. Now, that's a way in which I think Enzo Maresca wants to play, but I'd understand it more if we was opening teams up once we've then got our shape that we want to attack with, and teams are getting back in and we're creating chance after chance. Maybe like we was earlier on in the season, but I think when you're not opening teams up that are just sitting back, I think you have to mix your game up a little bit more, and I don't think we can rely on winning penalties or getting the odd goal, beating poor teams by the odd goal. And I think going on from the Copenhagen game where I thought we was poor against Leicester. But Jace is right. Now is the results business end of the season. But if we're going to analyse the game, we've got to do it truthfully. And at the moment, we're not good enough.
What would you do differently if you were in the dugout? Or watching
I mean,
Chelsea?
well, basically, just going back to the point there, I think that we need to mix our game up a little bit, and that's not to say that we need to go long, but when you have people like Neto further up the pitch that can hurt teams with pace, Jason Sancho's no slouch either. That if you want to put the ball in behind, but when you don't do it when there's a turnover and you allow teams to get back in, that space is just completely gone straight away. And then when you're relying on left backs shooting from 25 yards to get a win against a team they've lost like 11 out of the last 12.
Yeah.
And listen, I get the fact that the manager says that there was a slight change in them from a back 4 to a 5, but ultimately, when you dominate teams, most of them go into a back 5 anyway. So you should be used to that. That's now to shout home about.
We struggle, don't we, when teams sit deep? We
Yeah.
do. And Neto's pace in the early part of the season. I'm thinking of a couple of goals that we scored early part. It's a goal against Newcastle when Neto goes down that right hand side and Jackson scores. That was giving us grass in behind. Neto loves that to run. Jackson loves to get on his bike and get him behind. That space has been denied. OK, what's the answer? What's the solution? Then everything seems to be in front of their back 5. And I don't think where there are moments. I think set pieces against us is a real opportunity for us to try and counter-attack that.
Yeah.
You know, when Sanchez comes out and catches it, can we bowl that ball a bit quicker? He catches it, they retreat, and we roll it. And you think, there's a real chance there. We've got pace to burn, by the way. I don't think there are moments, and those moments can go very quickly. You can see it on the pitch, and they disappear like that in the Premier League.
And that doesn't mean that you can't still stick to the same philosophy in which Enzo wants to play. Yeah. It's just when those opportunities are rare in a game to be able to exploit the space, why not use them? When you've got pacey players, why not use them? Now, like I said, we're not sitting here telling the manager how he should play, but at the same time, if you want to give teams problems, you've got to mix your game up.
Do you think we're missing Nicholas Jackson more than... I mean, I think we all sat here and knew we were going to miss Nicholas Jackson just because of what he offers, even if certain people were saying, you know, he's maybe not as good as Chelsea fans think. We've missed him a lot, haven't we? Not just... Because I know sort of the second part of the season he struggled a little bit, as in having a lot of chances and couldn't find the back of the net, but just everything else he offers you as a player, playing with his back to goal, running in behind, we don't have that anymore.
No, I think Palmer's missing him as well, to be honest with you. There was a couple of occasions against Aston Villa where Palmer's looking for Nkunku. There was a ball he played, and Nkunku wasn't expecting it. And I see the frustration on Palmer's body language that the only pass I can play is going to be this one, and he's on his heels. I think that there's a telepathy between him and Jackson, which he hasn't quite been able to recreate with Nkunku. Neto, bits and pieces, but I think as a team and as a unit, I think there's a lot to be said that Jackson has been a big miss.
And it also allows you just, when there's somebody else playing in that position, it needs to be a lot more intricate. Like, it needs to be, the ball has to be perfect into feet and all that. Whereas with Jackson, if you slightly misplace the pass or it's a bouncing ball or the ball's in behind, we've got someone with physicality that can maybe turn those not so perfect balls into a good ball and actually roll defenders and use the physical side of the game, which allows us to maybe catch teams unawares a little bit more.
We're going to get into what Maresca actually said after the game, post-match, because he made a couple of, should I say, interesting comments maybe, but I think we can't really start inside Chelsea and not talk about Cole Palmer, because we obviously have spoken a lot about Cole Palmer on this show, and 99.9% of the time it's been good. But stepping up to take that penalty, Jace, I mean, I
had a fear.
Yeah, and I can't describe it because every single time, I mean, he's got every penalty he's taken and he doesn't ever look like missing. But I like you, just had a feeling that he was going to miss.
And I think the keeper, everyone knows Palmer right now is not right at the very levels he was earlier part of the season, and for the vast majority of last season. He's a left footer, and I think if you're going to go safe, if right foot, you're going to bend it across the keeper that way, left foot, bend it across the keeper that way. And I think the keeper's just kind of got inside, not inside his head, but guessed what he was going to do. Because it's not the worst penalty.
I'd go down the middle.
It wasn't the worst. Well, Cole Palmer before...
Just smash it down the middle.
Well, and every
hindsight United.
Right, I know, but I always
I've never missed a penalty in the stand.
I watch penalty takers, and I just think in this day and age, unless you're like Sergio Aguero against Edouard Mendy, do you remember that when he tried to like Panenka him and Mendy just stood up and caught it? But 99.9% of the time a keeper dives, don't they?
Yeah,
they dive right or left. If you're struggling for confidence, smash it as hard as you can, down the middle.
But when you've taken as many penalties as Cole has taken, he's been down the middle a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, so there's also that element.
Yeah.
I think we're reading a little bit too much into this penalty miss. I mean, people miss penalties.
Yeah.
My problem was he didn't stick it in the corner. everyone thought, it's a good save and it's a good penalty. I thought for Cole Palmer's levels, it was a poor penalty. If you're going to choose a side,
you've got
to go in the corner.
Even if he dives
and
the
it's
right
like, yeah, exactly. It's like it's nowhere near in the corner. That's the problem. And to be fair, he's due a bad penalty.
Yeah, he is.
And let's get it right. He's probably hit 2 or 3 that have not been right in the corner as well, but the keeper's chosen the other way to dive. So I think we're reading a little bit too much into it. He was never going to go without missing a penalty. But it just so happens it's come around the time when he's maybe being questioned about his form.
Yeah, and I think it is just a confidence thing, isn't it, Jace? I think that is all it is. But there was a few. I think after the penalty miss, I think his head had gone a little bit, just because there was moments where he was getting the ball, and there was a moment where he sort of had the ball, and it was quite a way outside the box, but the keeper was running back in absolute no man's land. Like, he couldn't even see where the ball was, who had it. And I was sitting almost like behind it, and I was thinking, Cole Palmer back in August to December would have shot there and probably hit the target, probably scored. But he didn't even have that. I was thinking he's got so much time and space on the ball, but that wasn't in his thinking. He was like, right, maybe just calm down, take a touch, take another touch.
He's 21, right? And I think it was inevitable there was going to be, he couldn't continue the levels that he was week in, week out. And he's had a little bit of a dip. It's coincided, actually, with our dip. You know, going into that Christmas period where we could have gone top if we'd beaten Everton, right? We were playing well. We weren't outstanding, but we were playing well, doing enough to get the points. This has all coincided now with a dip in form from him, and he's not alone, by the way.
Yeah.
His form will return. Yeah. That is also as inevitable as this dip was going to happen. It's when it happens now. And of course, if Cole Palmer plays well, Chelsea tend to play well.
I think that's a more important point rather than a penalty miss, is that if you look at maybe sometimes the body language, and you're right, after he missed the pen, I mean, you could tell on his face, and like you're saying, he's turning down an opportunity which he would usually not bat an eyelid at. But it was even the game before where he was desperate, not the game before, not Copenhagen, the one before that, he was desperate to score, and you could see the manager went to him at the end of the game, and he was clearly showing his frustration, Cole, that he knows that he's not scored or assisted for a while. But in fairness to him, if you look at the chances he has created, if people put those chances away, we're maybe not sitting here questioning his form as much. Because people do love a stat nowadays.
They do love a stat,
Assist stat, right? It was, I think, the highest in top 5 leagues across Europe.
He created the most chances
33
in
chances.
Europe.
That's what I mean. He hasn't dried up in creating chances for others. They just haven't been converted.
And I think just maybe his confidence himself in front of goal when he has got those chances.
I think that's the main worry, is that you go, he's desperate to score, and you've seen that in the last 4 or 5 games. He wants to get back on the score sheet. Yeah,
and he will. We have absolutely no doubt that Cole Palmer will get back on the score sheet very soon. Now, he was actually ill yesterday. Enzo Maresca confirmed after the game that he was actually quite ill. Reece James also missed the game through illness. Cole Palmer, being Cole Palmer and having the mentality that he did, said he wanted to play. Should Enzo Maresca have played him?
I think that conversation has to happen between the player, the medical staff, and the manager. And you've got to be honest with people. If Cole Palmer feels though we've all played with injuries or illness. Very rarely do you go out in complete tip-top. And there's always going to be something. Look, he played. The decision was called. Move on with that.
Would you, if obviously when you were in charge, or you're a manager, Jody, if a player comes to you, say your best player comes to you and says, it's a game that Chelsea really, really need to win as well, just given the stage of the season that we're at, would you play Cole Palmer if he says, I'm ill, I'm not feeling great, but I want to play? Yeah,
I also think that it's not just dependent on whether he's your best player, it's what you know about that person individually. You get some people that would walk out onto a pitch and play when they just feel that they have to play, but it could be to the detriment of your team. I think it all depends on the individual, and I think Cole Palmer's mature enough and knows himself and his body and his mind enough to be honest with the manager and say, look, I want to play. Yeah.
So that was obviously one of the things that Enzo Maresca confirmed in his post-match interviews. He also said he was very happy with the performance and the result. Now, we're all happy with the result. There's no doubt about it. We're all happy with the result. Are you surprised at all in any way that he came out and almost backed his players and said he was happy with the performance, even though I think everyone watching could probably tell that the performance wasn't great?
Do you know, I listen to some managers post-match, right? Some of the things they say about a game. I say, that's not what I saw.
But that's not what anyone saw.
There'll be a decision maybe a referee gives and the manager comes out and complains and you're like, come on, if it was the other way around, you would not be saying what you're saying. I think that there must be an element in Maresca's mind that he's very much aware that this team is underperforming. The results will tell you that. Where we were at Christmas, and I still can't believe we're in the top 4, we are, but where we were at Christmas and how close we were to Liverpool and how things have tailed off, the performance levels haven't been to the level we want. That's Cole Palmer's, the stats will show you that. The clean sheet record, that is another thing, it's a major problem still. I know the last 2 games against Southampton, Leicester, we kept the clean sheet.
They don't count.
But the Copenhagen goal, really for me, I felt summed us up as a team. 2-0 up, pretty comfortable. Yeah. The performance wasn't spectacular, but in control of the tie, and now the tie's very much alive. And I think there are aspects of our game that Maresca at time, going back to the clean sheets, he's been asked about clean sheets, and he said before, I don't think this is a problem. Well, we don't keep enough. So I do think there's an element the managers come out and they kind of see what they want to see, as opposed to what, let's be honest, the performance yesterday wasn't good enough. It simply was. First half, it wasn't.
No.
I think there's 2 points to this. I think the manager's coming out and maybe backing his players to the media to say, look, we're happy with this, and then he gives the whole, we was watching them as a back 4 and they was a back 5, and that they adjusted really well. I think there's quite a lot of arms and legs chucked on that. And I also think there's an element of, I'm telling the media I'm happy and I want it to be known that this is a very good performance and a very good result. Whether he's saying that in the dressing room, whether he's saying that with his staff, is a totally different ball game, because what you say to the media, and I've said this hundreds of times, forget what managers say to the media. Listen, if you're in the dressing room, you'll know how the manager really feels. And if he's saying that he's really pleased with that performance, I'd be very surprised, because he seems like someone who demands a lot from his players. But I understand why he's coming out and backing the players. I
mean, adapting very well to Leicester suddenly playing a back 5. Jody, you're shaking your head.
I don't get it at all. And as I said, I think that's purely on, I'm going to take this narrative and give that out to the media, because we're talking about Leicester here, one of the worst teams in the history of the Premier League, where God knows how many points in front of them. We've played against many a team that will be a back 5 at the start. There'll be a team that reverts to a back 5 because we're totally dominant, and we've broken that down, and we should be expecting to break that down, no problem.
I mean, surely Enzo Maresca was going to know that even if they played a back 4, like Jody says, at some point, because we are going to have all of the ball, that they're going to just revert into a back 5 anyway. So it's not like a big new thing that's changed the way Chelsea are going to play in any way, shape or form.
No, this is a Leicester side that's kept 1 clean sheet the whole season, right? So this is defensively a terrible team, and we laboured. I think goes back to the point that we were just talking about, the fact that we don't move that ball quick enough. We're an easy team, I feel, to play against at times because we don't move the ball quick enough. And if a team gets in their shape, do you know what? We've done training sessions. You have a 5 and a 4, right? You do that for half hour, 40 minutes. It's tough to break down. Yeah. It is. It can be really difficult. Yeah. But the fans ain't going to put up with that, because there are moments in games where you can take advantage. Again, the players out wide. Sancho, for me, looking for more in the wide areas. Noni's injury has created a bit of an issue for us there, and Kunku, naturally, he doesn't look comfortable out there. It's not his natural game. So there's lots that I feel that can be improved on. I'm looking forward to seeing when we get Lavia back, Noni back,
apparently
Jackson
Lavia's
back.
close, isn't he?
Yeah, and Fafana played yesterday as well. So we might see a different looking Chelsea when those players return as well.
Yeah, I am looking forward to having those players back. We will get on to Wesley Fofana, who obviously started for the first time in ages, and I thought was actually pretty good. You mentioned obviously passing the ball back and passing slowly, and the build-up play being just a little bit lacklustre. Now, Enzo Maresca, there was a groan from the Stamford Bridge crowd when Enzo Fernandez had the ball and he played it backwards. But we've seen Enzo Maresca come out, especially with the goalkeepers, and say, if the goalkeepers go long, I'll change them. Now, he said this, he said, Fernandez knows if he doesn't pass back, I will change him. If the keeper plays long, I will change him. So that's Enzo Maresca's instructions. But surely, Jody, like in a game, Enzo Fernandez, when he's got hold of the ball, he's got full reign of what he wants to do in that moment. And going backwards, I understand, I was at the game, it can get a little bit frustrating, hence why the crowd were making their feelings known.
Of course, and for me, it's just another example of Maresca backing Enzo Fernandez because don't tell me that there's not 100 times in a game where you'd maybe want your players to do something different. Now listen, he's likes a slow build up, likes to be in control, likes to have the players in certain areas when they're building, maybe doesn't want to risk passes, but if you're a midfielder and there's maybe a better option, and you also need to play the game. If you're playing in a 90-minute game where you can tell that the crowd are getting frustrated, there's no need for you to go side to side and backwards all the time because you're actually not even being put under pressure. Yeah. That's when fans get slightly frustrated. And for me, it's just another example of a manager trying to stick up for his player to go, do you know what, don't worry about the groans. He's doing what I'm asking him to do. But for me, it's more of just, a smokescreen on the fact that, listen, I'm just sticking up for my players.
I think he's protecting the players as well.
Of course he is.
Because,
what good managers do.
Yeah, he's come out publicly and he's telling everyone. I mean, he doesn't mean that he's going to take him off. If Enzo passes the ball forward, they ain't going to stick a number 8. I'm getting. Yeah. But he's basically saying this is what I want, and they're playing to the tactics I want to implement. That's basically what I think is just protecting them.
Is that obviously it's so frustrating because obviously us at the start of the season compared to us now are two completely different teams, and I saw that exciting, forward-thinking, quick football, counter-attacking at its finest. Is this just sort of how Enzo Maresca plays now? Is his build-up just a little bit slow, a little bit lethargic, a little bit safe?
I think also teams have had a good look at us. And I think the last two titles, it's no coincidence that Copenhagen played a back 5, Southampton played a back 5. Against a team that potentially wants to sit in, we struggle. We do. Teams that came onto us in the early part of the season, giving us more space in which to operate. I go back to the goal that we scored against Newcastle. That ball from Palmer in behind to Neto. We don't see that run anymore. We don't see that pass anymore because teams tend not to give us that space.
I think that's where we missed Jackson as well. If you go to a back 5, and the game yesterday, how narrow Leicester's back 5 was, where we want the players to be coming inside, and we don't necessarily. Okay, we got Cucurella that goes higher up the pitch, but it's very rare that you see him going high and wide up the pitch. He still likes to come inside as well, where it's actually easier to defend. Whereas if we had a Nicholas Jackson, would we maybe go on the outside a little bit more and cross? Because at the moment, if you're crossing the ball in the box, there's not many that you think is going to get on the end of it.
Now, another thing that Enzo Maresca spoke about was more support from the fans inside Stamford Bridge. He actually said they had it yesterday, which I was inside Stamford Bridge, and I'm not sure the atmosphere was pretty quiet, to be perfectly honest. But does he have a point, Jace? Do we need more support from the Stamford Bridge crowd? But on the flip side of that, you get more support and you get the fans up for it when you play quick, exciting, attacking football. At the moment, we're not getting that. So what?
It's the argument, isn't it? Do the players get the crowd up for it, or do the crowd get the players?
There should be a bit of both.
There's an element. Of course, there is. There has to be an element of both. There is definitely a general feeling, and we all. I'm not telling anyone that they don't know. There is a feeling, a lot of the supporters, there was a protest a couple of weeks ago, there is a feeling, a bit of a negativity feeling around Stamford Bridge at the moment for various different reasons. And the performance on the pitch, I think, you want to go there and you want to be, you want to see that fast-flowing, attacking football, creating chances that we saw early part of the season. It just feels as though the club's on a little bit of a slump at the moment. Yeah. Can I remind everyone, we are 4th, all right? OK, it's the Conference League. We are, favourites to go into the next round, potentially win that. This still can be a relatively successful season by considering the teams that have had disappointing seasons. Spurs, Man United, Man City. Yeah. We finish in top 4. If we finish top 4 and win the Conference League, I'll take, that's all we can do.
Yeah, that's all we can do. We haven't got...
Right now.
Jody,
I'm not interested in the Conference League.
Jody loves the Conference League.
No, I'm not interested. We should win it. Don't get me wrong. We should win it with our hands tied behind the back, to be honest. But we shouldn't be playing. We shouldn't be celebrating that competition with the level of team that's in it. But no, come on. But my thing, see, with the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge, whatever way you look at it, there's no two ways about it. That if you want to play this style of football, the way that Man City play, the way that Arsenal play, if you want to play this style of football, that gets groans no matter when you're the most successful team ever, like Man City was. You get groans, Man City do, because they maybe take a few options where they're not opening teams up enough. And he had it at Leicester. The fans were the exact same at Leicester.
Yeah.
It's not a riveting watch unless you're winning week in, week out. Now, when you go through those spells of, especially the spell we've just been through, you can understand why there's frustration. People want to be entertained.
Yeah, and at the moment, as well, obviously Chelsea getting the results, but performances just haven't been great. Okay, we're done with I don't know if negativity is the right word, but I think the realism of the performance and against Leicester. However, there are some positives. There definitely are some positives, and one of them, Jace, you mentioned, is that Chelsea are fourth. Mm-hmm. Chelsea are in that fourth Champions League spot. We think there'll probably be 5. But Jody, are you confident that we can finish the season in 4th or 5th in that last Champions League spot based on what you've seen over the last few months?
I wouldn't say I'm confident, but what I would say is, and I remember saying this a couple of weeks back when we was going through a spell, saying, look, if we can just get, I think we had, Southampton and Leicester. I was going, we can't ask for 2 better games to get our season back on track. And then if we can finish this season like we finished last season, which was outstanding. I know it was under Pochettino, but we was the second best team for the last 10 games in the Premier League. So if we can remotely finish as anywhere near as well as we did last year, I think we'll secure Champions League, no problem. Now, does that mean that we analyse the games differently? No, we still have to be honest, and what we're seeing is not great. But you're right, there are positives in the fact that we are still well within our rights to finish in the Champions League, and that is a huge. That's what the aim of the club should have been at the beginning of the season, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I stand by what I said at the start of the season. Chelsea should finish in the top 4, and the way the season's gone, I still think we do, and we should. And I think it would.
No one anticipated Forest, did they?
No one anticipated Forest.
There's a couple of disruptors in there. Yeah. Bournemouth are breathing down and
Brighton. Well,
Brighton are breathing down their neck. There's a lot of teams in there that don't have European football, I should say. Villa do, obviously. Man City are out.
Yeah, but Villa are all the way down.
I say they're all
the way down there, but they're actually points-wise. There's actually not.
They're 2 wins away from getting in the top 4 if the results go their way.
So basically, what we're saying is, from now to the end of the season, because all of those teams have been so inconsistent, I say Forest have been the most consistent, that's why they're third. But again, they're still only 2 points ahead of us.
There'll be a lot of changes. That's inevitable. Only 6 points behind Arsenal. That's to think at this stage of the season. That doesn't seem real.
Marc Cucurella.
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think Moises Caicedo has been Chelsea's player of the season by far, by a country mile, but been so impressive, Marc Cucurella, and popping up yesterday when we so desperately needed him, because at one point when it got to second half, I was thinking, I'm concerned here that we might not actually break this Leicester team down. Yeah, big goals, big games, big
winners as well, no? The winners, winning goals.
Yeah, and he's got a bit about him, actually. You look through this team, what is the personality of Chelsea? Well, we lack, I feel, like Enzo tries to be that player in the middle of the park. There's a little bit more about him. Cucurella gives us personality. Yeah. I know he's a pantomime villain. People love to hate him. He's got the big bushy locks. Yeah, he plays. He gets hit. He goes down. He's got all that about him. But you know what he has got about? He's got a bit of spirit. Yeah. And he's got a heart. And he gives you everything. If he isn't playing well, it's not down to the lack of determination or effort. And he's come up with some big moments, And Caicedo's going to win Player of the Year, but Cucurella is firmly in second for me.
This is the best we've seen of him, isn't it, in a Chelsea shirt? Struggled initially. I think he's been playing well for
alongside
quite
Palmer,
a while now. Yeah, obviously Palmer. But I think it's obvious Palmer. We don't even need to say that. But this is definitely the best football we've seen from Marc Cucurella at Chelsea, isn't it?
I think the tournament in the summer for Spain was huge for his confidence. Yeah. I felt he'd come back with his chest out. He didn't have the best year, his first year at Chelsea. Yeah. Obviously, there was a lot of money spent on him. He also had Chile that was there maybe as well, and you're kind of wondering who's going to be the number one. And the fact that now Chile's gone to Palace, I think he is, I agree with Jace, he's definitely one of the personalities, and he's one of the ones that, if he's not in your team, I'm not sure you'd like him.
You hate it. No, you absolutely hate him.
But when he's in your team, you don't mind him. He riles up the opposition. He's always in and about it. And the main thing, and I agree with Jace, is you get 100% of him every game, no matter whether we're playing well or poorly, no matter whether he's playing poorly, still gives you his lot. And rightly so, like Jason said, has popped up with some big goals.
Do you know what? Sorry, just on that role that he's asked to play, the inverted fullback. First half, he was giving us the width, and I felt Nkunku, we were a little bit kind of lopsided on there.
Yeah.
Second half, there was a swap. Cucurella did come inside a little bit more. That's how he actually got the goal.
Yeah.
But Enzo must love him because he's so versatile and so adaptable. He can go in there and he plays that role and does get in some goals. He even scored that flying header not a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was giving Marcus Alonso against Spurs. I mean, if he can have the impact that Marcus Alonso randomly had.
Oh, goal scoring from Marcus was unbelievable, and some unbelievable goals. And even in fairness to Cucurella, sometimes where he's having to go inside and he actually plays with his back to goal, that doesn't suit him. So he's actually taken away from some of his attributes at times where you go, you can actually get on the outside even more and be more of a threat going forward. But where he's playing the role that he's being asked to play, sometimes it's great when he's facing the play. I think he keeps the ball and he can find a pass. The only time I don't like Cucurella is when he's in there and he's got his back to goal and he's got people up behind him. I don't like seeing fullbacks doing that when you can have more talented technical players in those positions.
Top 3 left back in the league this season, do you reckon?
Well,
as in one of the top 3.
Yeah, Kirk's at Bournemouth, decent. I like Robinson at Fulham.
I think Lewis Hall's been brilliant.
Lewis Hall's been outstanding.
He has as well.
Yeah, it's a great shout. But yeah, Cucurella's in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done ever so well for us. By the way, there was a substitution that was forced on Maresca the other day when Gusto came on. I felt that substitution benefited us because it gave us a little bit more natural balance. Yeah, we've seen right foot play at left back. I'm not a big fan at all.
No, I agree with you. Now, I'm a little bit confused, guys. You're going to need to help me out here because for the life of me, I can't work out what is going on with Chelsea's goalkeeper situation. Because Jorgensen got almost the spot back. He said, Enzo Maresca came out and said, Jorgensen's the goalkeeper, that is it. So obviously, played against Brighton in the league, got battered, wasn't great. Played against Villa, made that mistake, but retained his place for Southampton, kept a clean sheet, and then what happens? Robert Sanchez is back in goal. Jody, please explain to me what's going on.
I have no idea. I'd love to be able to give some form of knowledge or an angle in what it is. I've got no idea. And also, it's hard to understand, obviously, from the actions that we've seen because of the rotation of the goalkeepers. Yeah. But then even when you hear the manager speak after, I'm still undecided on what's going on. So, yeah, I don't know. Over
Jason,
to you, Jace.
Jason, got any idea?
No, I don't. Do you know what? Every other position on the pitch, you can make a case for rotating the squad on certain games. Goalkeepers, only in cup games do you see that rotation. Rarely, in fact, I can't even think of another scenario where you've had a goalkeeper playing one week and a goalkeeper playing the next, and it's swapping around. I think it probably tells you a little bit about where Maresca's mind is. He's not convinced by either. That's what it feels like. Moving forward, I couldn't tell you who's going to play against Copenhagen.
But we're sort of at a disadvantage in a way, aren't you? Because you see how much stability it can bring you when you have one goalkeeper.
Well, why? Here's the question: why? You can rotate a fullback, rotate a centre half.
Why can't you?
Why couldn't you rotate goalkeepers? I mean, it's something that's never done. You've been in the dugout. It's something that I don't feel comfortable about.
No, I don't like
just
it
even
either.
saying it. But why can't you rotate goalkeepers?
Well, I think the reason why you would rotate is because you don't know who the best one is. Yeah. Or they're both in poor form. And I think that probably...
Latter. Or both of them, yeah.
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, that's really difficult. I mean, when you look at Strasbourg as well, and I know obviously Petrovic being out there and, having a great time. I think they kept 5 clean sheets in a row now. What do you think happens in the summer, Jody? Because you've got those two. You've got Jorgensen, you've got Sanchez, you've got Petrovic, you've got Mike Penders, who is a young goalkeeper I don't think has even come to Chelsea yet, even though we bought him. It's unlikely now when you look at those 4 that Chelsea are probably going to go out and buy another goalkeeper. But I suppose we don't, unless Petrovic comes back in as number 1 next season. I don't know. Can you see that happening?
I actually can't see it happening purely on the way things materialise. Because we've spoke about it on the show already that I thought Petrovic was the best goalkeeper last year.
So did I.
And then all of a sudden he was the one who had to go to Strasbourg. Now, whether his form and the way he's performed over there means that, maybe we need to reevaluate that. But I'm not sure. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Petrovic came back just purely because he's the one in form. But is that the answer? from how they're thinking upstairs, I'm not so sure.
Long term, what do you?
Honestly, I've got no idea. I wish I could add something more to what Jody said.
Surely it's.
You would have thought that the reason that Petrovic's gone out on loan is for him to, and it would appear that the reason he's gone out on loan is working. Get minutes, play every single week, mature as a goalkeeper. I'd like to think he comes back, but then we've got Penders. Then you've got four. Penders he's young. He's 19, 20. He's one for the future. That 5-6 years at a time. But I don't know. I'm afraid, Liv. There's no evidence that I've got in front of me to suggest that I can make an educated guess at this.
The only reason I think that they would have moved Petrovic over to Strasbourg after I thought he outperformed in the goalkeeper. I thought he was the best goalkeeper last year. Is purely because of the investment that was made on other goalkeepers. Now, whether that investment is now depreciating and you think, hold on a minute, our investment in Petrovic is actually now appreciated, let's now bring him back. That might have a bearing on it.
Right. Happy birthday, I should say, to Chelsea Football Club, 120 years old today. I was thinking about this on my way in and I was like, happy because I've been lucky enough to travel the world with Chelsea. I've gone to LA, I've gone to India, I went to Abu Dhabi, and this club has given me some of my happiest and best moments as a Chelsea fan, and now lucky enough to call it a job and get to sit here and talk about it. So it's difficult to pick. We've lucky enough, we've won it all. We've had so many incredible moments supporting and managing this football club. I'm going to ask you to yours first. Jason, what's your favourite moment in 120 years of Chelsea Football Club? Not that you were old enough to see those for 120 years.
For me, the standout, the greatest night in Chelsea's history was 2012 in Munich. Yeah. I was working with Chelsea TV that day. And it was what happened before it, for me, that made that night. Obviously, we know what happened in Istanbul, the JT missed penalty. We saw seasons before the penalties that weren't given against Barcelona when we went out on away goals. There were so many moments that built up to that you do wonder, will we ever win it? A little bit like PSG must feel right now. Will we ever win it? That night, I was doing it in the studio and I blubbed. I openly blubbed at that because we've finally done it. We've finally done it. That night for me, wowzers, that will live long forever for me, that one.
I will never get bored. I used to have the whole 6-hour TV show from when they broadcast it on Sky Sports, and I would sit there and watch all the build-up. I'd watch the game, fast forward some of the chances that Bayern Munich had because it was just constant, and then watch the whole penalty shootout, knowing what was going to happen, but it still gave me the same happiness. It's the way we won it.
That wasn't Chelsea's best team, I think, years before, but it's just the stars lined up. We won in our own backyard as well.
That's not fair, by the way. I still stand by that. How is it fair that we played a Champions League final in their home ground, but lost? Anyway. Jody, what is your favourite moment? Because it's hard to... Munich, there is plenty of them, but Munich's, I think for most people, will be number one.
Yeah,
what have you gone for?
Not for me. I'm more of being a fan and from the area. I was growing up in an era when Liverpool won everything, in the 80s. It was I never thought I'd see Chelsea win the league. And then where I was lucky enough to start playing, and we was actually doing all right in the Premier League in a few of my years, and we was quite close to getting over the line. Didn't quite happen. Wasn't sure when it was going to happen. And obviously, if we compare it to people like 2012, in the purest form of football, and this is how I've always viewed it, I think the best is always the league winners.
Yeah.
Cup competitions, we was by far not the best team in Europe that year. I think with the league, there's no disputing who is the best team. Now, we win Championship of Europe, and it's great for the night, and it's the prestige around the world.
Yeah.
But you're not the best team in your own country, let alone in Europe, right? And that's not saying...
I think we were the 6th best team.
Exactly, that's not... It's still, I was there, it was the best night ever. I actually ended up going back to... I had Lamps's Champions League medal, and they all flew back to England, and I was still in Germany with his Champions League medal around my neck. So I had a great time, don't get me wrong. One of the best nights ever. But winning the league the first time round under Jose at Bolton, for me, as a a former footballer, a coach, and a proper Chelsea fan like we all are from when we was young, winning the league where there's no disputing that you are the best team in your country, for me was the best moment in our history.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that as well.
It is, yeah. You've both made very good points, to be perfectly honest. Mine is different to both of yours. And it's because when you say, like, obviously, you might not be the best team in the league, but to me, when we won the Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, we were the best team in Europe. I think we did 100%. When you look at our route to the final, you look at the teams we played, we were better than everyone, not on paper, because going into that final against Manchester City, everyone had City as favourites. But the performance we put in on that night, like, I was there, and I think the feeling from Munich was like, and I was younger, I think I was like 19 when we won it, when Munich happened, and I hadn't met the boys I go to Chelsea with, I hadn't met them yet, and I wasn't really following the team as much as I then did after Munich. So obviously going around the world and Europe and following Chelsea to then be at a Champions League final, like, I never thought I would be able to watch my team win the Champions League, because not many fans can sit there and say they've watched their team win the Champions League. So it was the most nervous I've been for 90 minutes. I genuinely hated most of the game because
you can't enjoy the moment.
You can't enjoy it, and it was worse after we scored. You know, you're 1-0 up. Kai Havertz has scored, and I'm sit there in the ground like I can barely watch. And those last 5 minutes, I wouldn't wish on any football fan to have to sit.
The Mahrez
shot. To be honest, when the Mahrez shot went over, that's when I knew we'd won it. That's when I knew that it was our moment, and being there and. Yeah,
all special moments. I mean, you know,
like,
I was at Bolton. When we won it, I was there.
Oh,
I was doing the comments for talkSPORT on that particular day.
Yeah.
So I was there. I had tears in my eye that day as well.
Yeah.
But listen, when will we see those days again?
Oh, I know. Hopefully one day soon. So yeah, 3 incredible moments, but definitely let us know what your favourite Chelsea moment is. I think a lot of people will probably be agreeing with Jace and Jody, actually, with the comments, with the moments they pick. Mine's slightly more selfish because I was there and got to witness it.
I think it always depends on your age as well. I think that,
yeah.
and your experience. I think that's the beauty of football, is that it gives you so many different experiences in different walks of life, different age groups, and I think that's the beauty of football. I
feel sorry for Chelsea fans now. I haven't got much to pick from, have they? No, they will. The good days will be back soon, hopefully.
The old Conference League.
The old Conference League. Talking of, we have a second leg against Copenhagen, 2-1 up from the first leg. We're back at Stamford Bridge. Jody, because I know you love the Conference League so much, are we going to get through? Surely we're going to get through.
Yeah, of course we will. Listen, I think it's one of those games, and we was talking off air, and Jace was saying, you're on a lose-lose. I mean, we're expected to win the competition, and rightly so. The only thing that you would say is that I thought the game against Copenhagen away would have been a lot easier. I felt we underperformed, but 2-1 lead going at Stamford Bridge, we're going through.
Yeah, hopefully we do make it through. And Jace, following that, we have a very big game on Sunday against Arsenal at the Emirates. Now, we don't want a repeat of what happened there last year, but I think completely different situations now in terms of seasons, really, for them when you look at it, because they're not going for the league anymore. That's done and dusted. But a tough place to go. I mean, I wish, if I could put it, I can't say the word, I want us to house our way to a win. Does that make sense?
A
bit housery on a way to a win. But I don't know if I can see that happening, to be perfectly honest.
No, the performances of late suggest that it's going to be a tough afternoon's work for us. But look, we don't keep enough clean sheets. Arsenal will probably score. We're going to need to score at least one to get something out of it, I would have thought. We are good enough. We've seen that. We've proven that. Yeah. Arsenal will give us a bit more space. They will not play 5 at the back. We'll find a lot about this Chelsea side over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. We've got Arsenal, we've got Copenhagen, Arsenal, then Spurs. We'll find out a little bit more about us going into April, what this team really is.
Do you not think the way that Arsenal play, though, does suit us a little bit more compared to like the Southampton and the Leicester sitting back? Arsenal will come onto us.
Arsenal will think they'll beat us. They'll be confident, think they'll beat us. But I'm welcoming the game against Arsenal more than any of their games recently, because we've had Southampton, Leicester, and then Copenhagen twice. We're going into those 4 games going, we should batter these teams.
Yeah.
We are now going up against a team who's better than us, and I think it's good for our players to have that, to be walking. Hopefully, we've got a good result against Copenhagen, which I'm sure we will. Yeah. We'll be going into a game away knowing that we're up against it, and I think that'll be good for our players.
We have to make sure that we make the most of the space that we've got. I'm assuming Pedro Neto will probably play because I think that works. But we have to be, when we have counter-attacks, we have to make sure we make them count, because I actually think we will get a lot of space.
I wonder what he'll do, though,
Arsenal.
because will he play Caicedo and Reece? I wonder whether this might be the game that he plays those two. So the question is, where does Enzo play? So there's a selection issue here that Maresca, Reece was ill yesterday. I'm wondering whether he might go a little bit more reserved. I'm not. It's a real tough one, this. How does he play Reece at right back, and then Reece is the inverted fullback?
So then he plays Enzo, Caicedo
so then he can
in
still
midfield.
play Enzo, who can still play as that 8, where he likes to go and link up.
Hard, isn't it?
But yeah, so...
But the thing is, if he plays Reece won't be an inverted fullback. He'll be next to the other two centre-halves.
Do you think Cucurella will be the one that comes in?
And then Cucurella will go up, yeah. So it won't even be like that. I mean, listen, me personally, I don't see Reece playing in midfield purely because I think he won't drop Enzo Fernandez. No. But
I just want to see...
I think you're right, though, Liv. They're going to be high up against... They'll have moments when they're high up against us. We'll have a lot of men behind the ball at times. And to not want to exploit that, because you get Gabriel and Saliba are sometimes 25 yards in our half against teams that they set up.
That's right.
And they're dominating. There is so much room in behind, which you'd want as much pace on the pitch as possible in those wide areas. And I think if you end up putting Cole out wide, if you're going to keep Enzo in midfield with Caicedo and Reece, I just don't think you get that opportunity to hurt him. I think he plays Reece at right back and puts maybe Fofana in at centre half.
Yeah, when I think of our good moments against Arsenal over the years, which actually we haven't had many recently, but a lot of them, I'm thinking of Reece James being in the box and crossing the ball or good finishes, but I feel like that Reece is non-existent,
when
isn't it?
Tammy scored, when we went 1-0 down, and that Jorginho, I think, could have got a red card from memory. He might have had a second yellow, which wasn't given.
In that game, yeah? Because Georgie was sub. We brought him on after 20 minutes. We actually took off Emerson because we started really badly in that game, and then we brought Georgie on, and then he scored the first goal.
That was one of my favourite moments.
Yeah,
oh my God, that goal, that Tammy Abraham goal away at the Emirates, and the Willian double away at Spurs.
And that was in 2 weeks. That was like
back
2 weeks apart.
And what's happened now? We've got Arsenal, and then we've got Spurs.
Good omen.
Hopefully a very good omen. Right, that's it for another episode of Inside Chelsea. We'll be back next Monday after the Arsenal game, hopefully talking about a win, maybe. As always, if you want to get involved, post your comments below and we'll do our very best to answer them. Thank you very much for your company, of course. Thanks to Jason. Thanks to Jody. We will see you next time. Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.